Hey everyone, my name is Wes, and welcome back to another episode of Terror Talk where I discuss creepy clips online. I created this original horror music to add to the video, and I hope you enjoy it. Be sure to leave your own comments, and when you're done watching, check the description if you'd like to listen to my music without the commentary. Now let's get into it and have some fun.
This was a couple years ago when I was working two jobs to save up for a condo. I had a stable 9 to 5 full time gig, but did deliveries as a way to make a little bit extra cash whenever I had time. Actually, I found myself doing sometimes 30 hours a week, just doing deliveries every day after work. This night, I started after getting dinner at 6:30. It was a pretty good night to be honest. I was getting a lot of good orders with good tips.
Dang, that's a lot of hours this guy is putting in, huh? A 9 to 5, and on top of that, 30 hours a week. That's like 70 hours a week right there. If you're doing a 40-hour work week and 30 hours on the side with delivering groceries, that's pretty good money, I would think. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you like to work a lot or if you're not a workaholic and if you have any creepy work related experiences with Instacart or DoorDash or anything like that.
So really, I should have just taken the rest of the night off and given myself a break. But I was greedy. I kept working, hoping to continue getting well paying orders. By the time it was 11, it had slowed down a lot. The last few orders I'd done were just average. I really wanted to end on a good one, though, so I kept driving around until one came up that was decent. Finally, when one did, I quickly accepted it. Almost 20 bucks for a delivery 15 minutes away. Who wouldn't take that? Once I got the food, I started heading to the address. The roads were, of course, very quiet and empty at this time of night, so the drive there was smooth. However, it took me toward a wooded section of town that I wasn't even aware had houses in it. I made sure I was on the right route several times, though, just to be sure I was going the right way. When I got to the final turn, it was on a well maintained gravel road going into the forest. I drove a little ways down until there was a gate. It was one of those small ones, basically just two pillars on either side of the path with a chain running between them. The chain on these wasn't up though, so I drove through. My headlights weren't the best, so I couldn't see too far ahead, but not too long past the gate, I pulled into a parking area. I was confused. It definitely was not leading to a house. I pulled into a space and put my car in park, then looked out my windows all around. There was a sign on one end. This was a forest preserve. I'd done deliveries to parks and whatnot before, but I always thought forest preserves were closed up at like 8 or 9, and I didn't see anyone here to deliver the order to. Just as I was starting to question what exactly I was supposed to do here, my phone started ringing. It was the customer. I picked up. The voice on the other end was a deep male voice, very gravelly and rugged, almost to a point where it was hard to understand them. He
Already, I feel like this situation is riddled with red flags. Driving all the way out here in some kind of forest preserve thing, and this guy with a super deep, gravelly voice. Like, the whole thing just sounds very suspicious, doesn't it? What would you do in this situation? Would you actually deliver the food and risk a whopping $20 for potentially a dangerous situation, or would you get out of there? Because I would highly consider getting out of there at this point. That's just my opinion, though.
said he saw on the map that I'd parked and asked if I could see him. I said no, to which he explained he was camping with some buddies down one of the trails, and I should be able to spot a campfire if I walk a little closer. I said all right, realizing this was probably why the tip was so large. I did mention to him that I thought the forest preserves were closed, but he said this one allowed overnight camping on certain days. I wasn't a big outdoorsy person, so I didn't know any better. I didn't see any reason he'd have to lie. I turned off my car and got out with his bag of food. I quickly realized that it was really dark and I needed to use my phone as a flashlight to see where I was going. There was only one trail leading out from the parking area, so at least I couldn't get lost. I started walking. It was really quiet outside. I expected to hear the group of guys talking and laughing in the distance, but I didn't. It was just the wind and crickets. Then I saw the light, an orange flame glowing and flickering out in the trees.
So you're telling me this guy has to walk through a dark, creepy trail to some fire off in the distance in a forest preserve just for $20. I'm like, oh, hell no. I would be out of there so fast. I'd be like, you know what? Screw this, because this is honestly a major red flag, isn't it? Like, I don't see how this person is so naive and gullible in this situation. I mean, would you be that trusting in this situation? Because I certainly wouldn't be.
Oddly, it wasn't on the path though, or right off the side of it. It was far out of the way and amid all the trees. I couldn't see too far down the trail to see if there was a direct path going to it or not, but I just started walking straight to the flame. As I got closer, things were getting really strange. First of all, I didn't hear any voices. And secondly, once I got even closer, I didn't see anyone. It was just a small campfire burning in the middle of nothing. No chairs, no tents, literally nothing. I barely got the chance to whisper, "What the hell," under my breath, before I heard a stick snap from somewhere out in the trees. I jolted my head toward the sound. There was someone there, but too far for the light to reach, and the faint figure that I could make out was standing still, like they were trying not to be seen. I felt really uneasy.
Yeah, at this point, you know that something is way off. If they're hiding and trying to be unseen by what's going on here, then this is really unsettling. And I knew that it was a trap the moment he got to the forest trail or the forest preserve and had to go through the trail because, dang, this is like not normal. Not normal at all for a food delivery.
"Hey, I'm the delivery driver. I'll just put your order down over here," I yelled out and set the bag on the ground. As I did, they suddenly decided to show themselves and walk toward me. The man was tall, with dark hair and a scruffy beard. He apologized and said he didn't see me walking up. It was that same deep, gravelly voice from the phone. His smile was disturbing, like he was faking it, and it was really strange that he only showed himself once he knew I saw him. Nothing added up. I stumbled over a few words, but as he got closer and closer, I just decided to turn and run. He called out several times in this creepy, overly nice voice, asking me to come back and that he had cash for me. I didn't stop until I got to the car. I fumbled around with my keys in my shaky hands as I tried to hurry in and turn it on. I backed out and pulled back onto the gravel path to leave, but had to slam on my brakes. The chain was latched across the pillars now, blocking the exit. I stared at it for way too long, trying to think if I could get out and unlatch it, or what to do. Then I heard footsteps coming up behind my car. I didn't even look. I just floored it onto the grass and made it around the pillars. It was a tight squeeze because there was a short ditch really close to the sides, so if I messed up, my car would have slid down and maybe gotten stuck. Once I was back on the gravel, I sped away. I didn't know what that was back there, but I was stupid not to call the police. Even though I think that if I did, they likely would have been long gone anyway. The following morning, I did a little investigating and found that the forest preserve I was at did in fact close at 8 p.m. and never allowed camping or campfires. To me, that confirms the horrible nature of the situation I was in. What he intended to do is unknown, and still haunts me to think about what could have happened in the forest that night.
Yeah, that is pretty creepy. And the fact that there was a ditch when he was driving away that he could have slid into is also really scary, because if he had slid into that ditch and been trapped, there's a chance that the story could have gone a whole lot worse than it actually was. And these types of things do happen. I don't know how entirely common it is that how common it is that they happen, but they do happen. And I don't know. I just feel like when you get to a forest preserve that late at night and you actually have to walk down a trail, I feel like that's already a red flag right there. And he said he was going to call the police, but at the same time, I don't think the police would have done anything in this situation because, well, actually, that's not true, because if he was out there in the forest past the time where he shouldn't have been, he could have been arrested, possibly, for being out there that late when it was closed. And making fires where fires aren't allowed is also a really big deal when it comes to these parks and this kind of stuff. So he definitely could have been arrested, and he should have called the police, but he probably would have been long gone before the police had gotten there. So calling the police in most of these situations doesn't really do anything significant. But you just really have to be a lot smarter than this person was in this situation, because I feel like the red flags and signs were a lot clearer than, than this guy made them out to be. But either way, I thought this was a good story, and I hope you enjoyed my commentary and the music, and I will see you in the next video.